Neighborhood Watch Protected written all over it, or whatever the British version of that might be. The man coming up from their right, watching the same house while stomping through the high grass, did challenge that theory. The careful footing raised a flag, but it was the gun the guy carried that ruled out an innocent evening walk around the neighborhood. So much for Dickens. Ford motioned for West to drop. On command, and without a word, the big man flattened, slithering on his stomach as the wind covered the small amount of noise his pants made sliding across the ground. He shifted out of sight within seconds. On his own, Ford hunkered down, staying still until even his breathing slowed, and the sounds of the neighborhood echoed in his ear, each one magnified and highlighted so he could separate the man from the surroundings. The grass crunched, and the thud of footsteps grew closer. Ford heard a click, as if the guy tapped his finger against the side of his gun. If he kept it off the trigger, Ford would have an extra second or two. Not that he'd need it. He had surprise on his side. And West. They could take on 10 men and come out on top. One guy wandering around as if he'd lost his dog hardly amounted to a real problem. Ford waited until the last second, until the guy's shoe came into his line of vision, then jumped to his feet in a crouch. Another step, and Ford stood, lifting his elbow and nailing the guy under the chin in one swift move. The gun dropped, and the man's head snapped back on a sharp intake of breath. Before he could recover, Ford slammed a heel into his stomach and sent him flying. He landed on his ass and sat there, doubled over and coughing. Ford knew that was too easy. He leaned in, and the guy came alive. Rage showed in every line of his body and in the flat line of his mouth. His guttural roar had Ford shaking his head as the guy launched himself. The man's full weight barreled into Ford's midsection. The breeze kicked up around them, and a dog barked in the distance. Ford heard shouting in his ear over the comm and ignored it all to concentrate on staying on his feet as the guy backed him up and attempted a spine-cracking throwdown. Ford would shoot without blinking. Truth was, gun beat wrestling every single time, but he didn't want to draw attention. Not that the guy seemed to realize that. He grunted and tried to shove Ford off balance, knocking him from one side to the other, but not standing up and planting his feet like he should have. Fucking amateur. Ford tired of messing with him. When the guy got lucky and landed a shot to Ford's chest, Ford declared playtime over. He kneed the guy in the jaw and heard a crack. The vice grip around Ford's waist eased a second later. He took advantage of the break with a quick stranglehold around the guy's neck, a few defensive kicks and grabs at Ford's arm, then the man passed out. Dropping the dead weight, Ford stepped back and surveyed his supposed attacker. The guy could have used more bodyguard training. The whole scene lasted a few seconds. It only went on that long because Ford didn't immediately end it. Next time he would cut it short and get back to surveillance faster. Bent over with his hands on his knees, Ford stared at the lifeless form at his feet. Then he checked pockets for ID, not expecting to find any, and not disappointed when he didn't. A movement off to his side had him glancing up. West stood there wearing a stupid grin. That was annoying as shit. You'd think a supposed terrorist could afford better talent, Ford said. Hey, he did get one shot in against you. Ford gave his teammate the finger. West laughed. Just reporting what I saw. The chaos on the comm finally pulled Ford into responding. Stop yelling. We're fine. West touched a hand to his earpiece and answered as he scanned the area before his gaze landed on Ford again. What were you saying about Dickens? Not a topic Ford wanted to discuss right now. You run out and get a sandwich, or did you get confused about the concept of backup? West shrugged. You were doing fine. Not convinced the unconscious guy didn't have a friend hovering nearby, Ford motioned for West to duck down. After a quick visual sweep of the area, Ford glanced at one of the upstairs windows, on the tick of movement he sensed rather than saw. Screwing with West gave Ford a second to think about the best way to scale the wall. For the record, your sister likes when I read Dickens to her before sex. Does this imaginary sister think you're a dick? Ford had to laugh at that. That's just you. No, it's not, Harlan said, breaking through the byplay.